Пары, которые врут о том, как познакомились. Какова ваша реальная история знакомства? Мы не совсем врем об этом, просто опускаем некоторые детали. Я развела его в Тиндере. В то время я весила 130 плюс килограмм и использовала фотографии 5-летней давности. Когда я во всем призналась, он все равно согласился встретиться. С тех пор мы вместе, и за это время я сбросила весь лишний вес и снова выгляжу как та девушка на фотографиях. Мы только что съехались. Мы всем рассказываем, что познакомились на вечеринке по случаю Хэллоуина. На самом деле я просто кинул ей рандомное сообщение на Facebook, надеясь на разовый перепихон. Через 3 года мы поженились. Жизнь – странная штука. Я встречался с одной девушкой, у нее был младший брат. У младшего брата была девушка. Я и девушка младшего брата вскоре поняли, что брат и сестра не самые лучшие люди. Они всю жизнь прожили в заточении, и у них странные отмороженные взгляды на мир. Поэтому мы стали встречаться друг с другом. Нет нужды говорить, что брат и сестра были в ярости, но это уже не мое дело. Она была моим коксовым барыгой. Мы сошлись, пока я помогал ей делить унцию на граммы. В итоге у нас было несколько сумасшедших и бурных лет. А после того, как мы оба привели свои жизни в порядок, мы решили, что будем рассказывать, мол, мы встретились на домашней вечеринке. Вообще, это достаточно близко к правде. Короче, моя лучшая подруга с 7 класса спустя годы попала в индустрию для взрослых и танцевала на каком-то мальчишнике. После шоу она и другая стриптизерша остались потусить, а шафер с ней заговорил. Мотаем время на 8 лет вперед. Они поженились, и у них 2 маленькие дочурки-красотки. Она ушла из бизнеса, как только у них начались серьезные отношения, и никогда об этом не жалела. Он отличный парень, душевный такой и очень милый. Они идеально подходят друг другу. Но я никогда не забуду его тост на их свадьбе. Только я и еще одна девушка со школы, из гостей с ее стороны, знали их настоящую историю знакомства. Поэтому, когда жених произнес свою речь о том, как они впервые встретились через друзей, все в зале выдали милое «Оу», кроме меня и Эл. Мы с ней судорожно пытались не обоссаться со смеху. Теперь ее отец ненавидит меня еще больше. Фе. Я познакомилась со своим парнем почти 8 лет назад в интернете, на форуме по играм, в те времена, когда это было более стигматизировано. Мы оба жили в разных странах. В течение нескольких месяцев мы перешли от сообщений на форуме к общению на Facebook, к ежедневному общению по Skype с голосовой и видеосвязью. А затем он приехал ко мне в Лондон. Дальше все как-то завертелось, и вот мы уже более 5 лет живем вместе в Дании. Одно время я вычеркивала из нашей истории все, что было до фразы «Мы познакомились, когда он приехал в Лондон». Просто меня бесили комментарии типа «А что, если он серийный убийца?» Или «Блин, ты же не можешь по-настоящему знать, с кем познакомилась в интернете». А сейчас в этом совершенно нет ничего такого. После того, как наши сердца были разбиты дерьмовыми людьми, мы утратили веру в отношения и полезли в Тиндер за случайными плотскими утехами без обязательств. У нас был матч, ей понравилась моя борода, мне понравились ее голубые глаза. Мы говорили о Гарри Поттере и обсуждали, кто, по нашему мнению, был бы лучшим Человеком-пауком, Тоби или Эндрю. Затем мы встретились, пошли домой, перепихнулись и оставили все как есть, ожидая, что больше никогда не будем общаться. Максимум время от времени встречаться ради кекса. Потом мы начали все больше общаться, больше говорить о жизни, о наших буднях, о наших семьях, о планах на будущее. Мы стали оставаться друг у друга дома на ночь, стали вместе завтракать, затем начали держаться за руки и смотреть друг на друга на несколько секунд дольше, чем раньше. Мы начали оставаться друг у друга дома, даже не думая о том, чтобы переспать. И до этого момента, спустя несколько месяцев после нашего знакомства, мы никогда не говорили о том, что будем вместе. И вот однажды вечером по дороге домой с бара, подвыпившие, мы посмотрели друг на друга, пожали плечами, и кто-то из нас обронил: видимо, мы теперь одно целое. А остальным мы рассказываем, что познакомились в том баре. Собираемся пожениться весной, так что, друзья, не вижу ничего страшного в Тиндер. На вид мы были прилежными детьми, но у нас была тайная бунтарская жизнь. Мы отрывались на вечеринках при каждом удобном случае. И вот однажды мы собирались принять участие в очередных незаконных развлекательных мероприятиях. Мы подъехали на вечеринку, и он сказал: «Я много думал о нас, и мне бы очень хотелось, чтобы мы были вместе. Я хотел сказать тебе об этом до того, как мы войдем внутрь и начнем трахаться. Сейчас мы вместе уже 13 лет, женаты, есть ребенок. Не ходим давно ни на какие тусовки, люди называют нас примерно американской парой. Ах, если бы они только знали». Мы с моим бывшим познакомились на аниме-коне, возле панели, высмеивавшей хентай и фанфики. Я познакомилась со своим парнем в интернете. Мы жили всего в 2 штатах друг от друга. Я заканчивала школу и еще не решила, в какой буду поступать колледж. Мы виделись несколько раз, и поэтому моя мама решила, что я должна учиться там, где живет он, в студенческом городке. Так что я переехала туда, и с тех пор мы вместе 5 лет. Большинство Большинство людей, по крайней мере старшего поколения, странно относятся ко всем этим онлайн-знакомствам. Мы познакомились на Tumblr, вздыхает, лол. Хотя наши ровесники считают, что это круто и не так уж дико. Я думала, что, может быть, разрушу свою жизнь, выбрав колледж из-за мальчика. Но мне хотелось хотя бы попробовать, и пока что все идет хорошо. Познакомилась с ним на FetLife, а коллегам сказала, что через Bumble. Одна из коллег так вдохновилась моей историей, что сама зарегалась на Bumble, но успеха там так и не добилась. Изменено. FetLife — это соцсеть для извращук, а Bumble похож на Tinder, только там женщины первые пишут мужчинам. История не про то, как мы познакомились, а про наше первое свидание. Я позвонил ей, спросил, чем она занята. Она сказала, что собирается ехать в соседний город за подругой, и спросила, не хочу ли я поехать с ней. По дороге мы решили, что хотим купить немного эмок. Я сделал несколько звонков, и мы заскочили в алко-точку за выпивкой. Ни у кого эмок не оказалось, поэтому мы остановились на коке. Нам едва хватило на грамм, но пофиг. Вернулись домой, начали пить, и я сделал еще несколько звонков. Один чел ответил, что может встретиться с нами, но нам придется ехать через весь город. Мы оба бухие, ничего не выйдет. Тогда я решаю, как насчет гречки? Она соглашается, я звоню своему челу, и бум, он сразу же берет трубку. Круто. Я иду к нему и беру став. В следующие несколько часов мы с девушкой сидели в разных парках и знатно упарывались. Мне было офигенно, а ее тошнило всю дорогу домой. Но мы все равно угорали и отлично провели время в промежутках между ее блевотней. Теперь мы женаты, у нас есть сын, и никто из нас не притрагивается к дуре. Мы познакомились через Reddit. Большинство людей такой способ знакомства бы оттолкнул. Поэтому мы говорим, что сошлись через общих друзей, когда мой парень учился в универе. Схема работает как надо, но я бы предпочла говорить правду. Мы врем о том, как мы начали встречаться. Вернее, это не ложь, а недоговаривание. Я не собираюсь рассказывать нашим семьям, что он в попытках ухаживать за мной подарил мне наручники и женский, так сказать, массажер. И что у нас была связь еще за несколько недель до того, как мы впервые поцеловались. Нужны подробности? Мы 4 года дружили в универе, но у нас обоих были вторые половинки, так что мы были просто друзьями. Честно говоря, он так часто говорил о том, что он в отношениях, что я вообще никогда не рассматривала его как партнера. Затем на последнем курсе университета мы оба пережили расставание. И как-то раз под конец учебы мы поехали на экскурсию. Мы говорим всем, что осознали, что у нас есть чувства друг к другу во время этой экскурсии. Что является правдой, но мы упускаем тот момент, что мы нарочно избегали общения с однокурсниками, чтобы я могла тайно делать ему приятно. Во время этой же поездки он нашел магазинчик с товарами для взрослых и купил мне тот самый женский массажер. Но я была ханжой и отказывалась им пользоваться, поэтому он провел мне инструктаж. Когда учеба в универе закончилась, мы разъехались, и я больше не планировала с ним видеться. Теперь мы женаты уже год. Я говорю людям, что мы познакомились через общего знакомого на Прайде. И все было почти так, только мы не встретились лицом к лицу. После Прайда я случайно увидела в Facebook-ленте нашего общего друга фотографию, где я была на заднем плане и отметила на ней себя. Оказалось, что фотографию сделал и опубликовал мой теперь уже муж. Так что на самом деле она была в его Facebook-ленте. Он добавил меня в друзья. Я приняла запрос, мы начали общаться. 5 лет спустя мы все еще вместе. Не про меня, а про моих бабушку и дедушку. Они познакомились благодаря газете, куда одинокие люди давали объявления. Пошли в поход с группой и влюбились друг в друга. Мой дедушка отрицал эту историю до самой смерти, а бабушка рассказала нам правду уже после его смерти. Мы с мужем познакомились таким же образом почти 30 лет назад. Оба сделали это по приколу, вовсе не ожидая, что в итоге поженимся. Нашим детям 21 и 24 года. Мы рассказали правду только 6 месяцев назад. Наши семьи обо всем знают, но остальным мы не рассказываем, так как это звучит странно. Мы познакомились 4 года назад на match.com и переспали в первый же вечер, нажравшись маргарит. С тех пор мы не разлей вода. Мы рассказываем людям, что познакомились через общего друга из колледжа. Он якобы представил нас по электронной почте, когда узнал, что мы живем недалеко друг от друга. На самом деле мы жили в 1500 километров от того места, куда мы вместе ходили в колледж. Муж просто считает, что знакомства по интернету все еще стигматизированы, поэтому ему больше нравится вариант с общими друзьями. История настолько неправдоподобна, что люди всегда думают, что это чудо, что мы нашли друг друга. Мы познакомились на OkCupid. Оба были набожными девственниками, 23 года и 20 лет, у которых максимум до этого был поцелуй. Она впервые поцеловалась в 23 года. Мы оба хотели наконец с кем-нибудь уже переспать и сделали это через 3 свидания. Вместе уже год. Большое спасибо за просмотр. В комментариях под видео пары, которые врут о том, как познакомились, напишите, какова ваша реальная история знакомства, и не забудьте посмотреть наши другие выпуски. Обнял. Пока.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike. What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.